Thanks for joining us for Elko Live today. Today, it is time for our regular update. We get at least once a month from the Elko County School District. Today, C.J. Anderson, our school superintendent, is in studio alongside the Director of Human Resources, Cody Krenka. Gentlemen, welcome to both of you. It's great to have you here in the studio today.
Thank you, Lori. Great to be here.
Thank you. And thank you, Cody. And obviously, we'll get right into the discussion. There's a lot of territory to cover. There was a 4-hour school board meeting on Tuesday. That was a special meeting, was it? Or was that your regular meeting?
No, that would have been a special scheduled meeting.
Because it fell on the same night as council. So that's what I was pretty busy trying to get information from both. So Superintendent Anderson, we do know that the vote was 5-2, and the consolidation of Flagview is proceeding. What do you want people to know about this process?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I do want to thank everyone who contributed to the conversation, and that's our board members, that's all the district staff who answered more questions than I've ever received on any topic, I think, and so the board could have an informed decision. Lots of public comment, so many emails, and bits of feedback from people, from parents to teachers to other staff, and so a lot of people contributed to the conversation, and the board as a whole voted to approve that change, and so. So very importantly, it's just good to know that as far as what is going to be happening is our current fourth graders will stay put for next year and be fifth graders at the schools they already know and love. And our fifth graders will stay put at Flagview, which, as the staff indicated in the meetings, kids love it there at Flagview. And so they will be at the school they're already accustomed to. And our sixth graders will go on to Adobe just like they were going to anyway. So
something that did come up during the meeting, which I think, CJ, I don't know whether that was a surprise. It seemed to be a surprise to at least one board member, but that you did get, meaning the administration, teachers, others involved in this process, did get significant public comment from the community about the well-being of fifth graders staying on elementary campuses. Did you want to talk about that?
I can talk about that, but as I talk about that, I just want to make something pretty clear, and that is that, the comments around that were surrounding just things that we hear, right, in the community, because we're not just, I'm not a superintendent that sleeps in the office and is there, and that's my only role in life. I'm heavily involved in the community, both from an art standpoint, with my church, with my kids' activities, and in so many other ways with other local groups. And so, and the same goes for every one of our administrators and of course board members. Like we're all, none of us are robots. We all exist in other circles within our communities, and just by nature of the position that I have, a lot of people, especially those close to me or who have familiarity with me, do feel free to talk to me about how they feel about different things. And so, as a community member and as the superintendent, I've heard oftentimes about how hesitant people are to have their children leave elementary school to go to an intermediate school. And something that I wanted, I made clear at the meeting is I don't believe personally that there's necessarily a detriment to kids going to a fifth and sixth grade school. In fact, the first school I ever worked at as a teacher, my very first teaching job was at a fifth and sixth grade intermediate school in Houston, Texas. And so that environment can work, can be good, but if someone were to ask me, what do you think is the general preference of the people and the people of the community, I would say that the feedback would indicate to me that they would prefer that their children remain at elementary school probably as long as they can. Definitely fifth grade was one where I would hear a lot of people say, I think it starts to split up a little bit around sixth grade, just depending on what people's comfortability is or what their experience was with middle school, where they lived. But what I want to kind of qualify all that with is I know that whether it's fifth grade teachers at Flagview or fifth grade teachers at an elementary school, these are loving, caring, successful professionals who work with our students. And so I don't think there's a well-being problem with them being at one building or the other. I think that that is people's perception. I know there was some very valuable feedback that came from medical professionals in our community who said that, they, from their perspective, have seen, upticks in mental health issues right around that time. And whether that's related, I wouldn't think that's necessarily related to the school per se, but probably more just like developmental milestones in a child's life. But yeah, go
I
ahead.
just want to
Sorry.
make sure that it did seem to play into the decision, at least for a couple of board members who might have been, undecided or decided another way or something like that. That came up during the meeting, during my observation.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. A couple of board members, actually, I think two of them reiterated that feedback that they'd got throughout the time leading up to that meeting. But I think that most importantly, that was, while all data is relevant and every element of the conversation is important to consider, I think what the conversation started to turn into is inadvertently, or maybe advertently for some people, but for me it was like we are getting away from the topic at hand and what we're talking about,
which is restructuring and saving money.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
This was never about let's find the school that we think is the worst and reduce it down to next to nothing. Like that was not the conversation. It never has been the conversation, and I can't even imagine engaging in that conversation.
So CJ, let's switch over to Cody. He's waiting here patiently. Thank you.
Sure.
We're going to bounce around because there are a lot of topics associated with it. So the restructuring that was approved allows the school district to reduce 11 staff positions. The estimated savings is $837,000. I think that's where people, there's a great deal of concern, Cody. There's a difference between transferring versus reduction in force, right? Did you want to talk about that for us?
That's correct. I think a lot of people, when they hear the idea that this will be saved by eliminating 11 positions, it's important to recognize that those 11 positions don't necessarily come from Flagview. All right, we're reducing 11 classrooms at Flagview, but those teachers, those classrooms that are shutting their doors at Flagview, they'll be transferred to other schools, whether it's voluntary or involuntary. Most of those teachers that want to move have already submitted their notice of voluntary transfer, and I can tell you that there's more than 11. So people are saying, hey, okay, I'm willing to transfer if no one else wants to. So we have the other principals in the Elko Spring Creek area have plenty of options to look at the Flagview applicants. Those 11 positions are the critical needs or long-term subs at other schools. So those people who are a yearly basis, whose every year those jobs are posted and can be replaced, those are the 11 positions that we're talking about.
And that really, I think that stood out for me in watching that 4-hour meeting, is because that's a big expense, Cody. So, does that say it's difficult to hire teachers? Or, critical needs means you have to fill that position and you don't have enough applications. Is that essentially what it means?
Yes, a critical needs teacher is a person that's retired and is coming back. They're still licensed. We have that 30-year or plus experience. They come back because the principals couldn't find a licensed individual for that classroom, and they come back. So yes, that expense is pretty significant because those critical needs teachers come back at the same salary as when they retired.
And then the long-term subs also, did I hear correctly or make notes correctly of it's about at least $200 a day for long-term subs? Or
long-term subs did get changed recently. That change doesn't take effect until July 1 of 26. So a long-term sub today makes a little over $300 a day.
Oh boy.
So
okay.
Yeah, that's a significant savings. Our long-term subs have committed to our schools and our programs and our students throughout the year. So our school board recognized that, and they kept that commitment, even though it's just a verbal one, for the rest of the year. And that actual change of $200 and some a month, $200 and some a day doesn't actually take place till the next school year. It goes into effect July 1.
Okay, that'll be anticipated, obviously. And I think that's also underscoring, CJ, the fact that this isn't a one-off. This savings of $837,000, you still have something like $10.2 million to go in realizing savings. You're working on these things.
Yes, that's correct. That's one element. I would not say we still have that much to go.
Okay.
We have made multiple decisions already that factor into that 11 million that we're talking about.
So what are we left with? What's the shortfall?
I do not have that total
Okay, we'll bug
conjured up
Cassie
quite
later.
yet.
Yes.
In fact, there's a financial update that went out today
Yes.
to staff and to parents and community members. I've seen it hit inboxes both from a staff standpoint and as a parent of children in our district, and so everyone should have that. And that same update will be up is probably already on our website as well with the budget page. But something on there that it makes sure to point out is one of the requests from a board member last time was, hey, can we get an update on where we are now? Because all of these proposals that have been made for the last month or so are with the objective of getting to at least an additional $11 million of savings. And so they want to know kind of where we are and what we're projecting. And some of those are I hate to use the word impossible, but they're impossible to quantify, even when we get them done, because some of those are dependent upon enrollments and participation and things for next year. But anyway, all of that is in that newest communication, and to the extent that we can, we will quantify each of these savings that have been made, and where that leaves us now, and what is yet to be done.
Anna, it is in here, as you just pointed out, so skimming quickly, just hit my inbox too, so I was reading through it. The goal is to work toward $15 million in adjustments to maintain at least a 4% ending fund balance, and I think that is a state requirement too. And it's also mentioned in here, and whether Cody or CJ want to, another important point you wanted to reiterate is salary reductions for employees are not part of the current budget strategy. I'm sure that's been a big concern, CJ.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the topic has come up in board meetings as board members think through what other things can be done, right? Because I made a certain number of proposals, and it's very important for people to be able to distinguish. Because when we talk about the school district, right, oftentimes if a board member says something, it gets attributed to the whole board or to the whole school district, and that is not necessarily the case. No one board member, unless authorized by the rest of the board in the form of the president in an official capacity, can speak on behalf of the board. The board speaks for itself by voting on things, and so when a board member thinks out loud about something or says something, that is one person's opinion, that's their musing, that is their thought processes. And so the topic of salary reductions has been mentioned, but at no point in any presentation or in any proposal have I ever proposed that as an action to take.
In fact, some of those concerns might have been elevated because Tuesday, March 10th's board meeting had an agenda item regarding a declaration of a financial emergency for the purposes of reopening union negotiations. And how did that go?
That went very quickly because the school district does not qualify to declare a financial emergency. It was a topic that's been discussed again around board members asking questions, and so at the previous meeting on the 3rd, there were multiple requests made from board members to have this as an agendized item for discussion and possible declaration, and we were able to honor that request to have it on there so it could be discussed, because that is what must happen in order for board members to discuss things that could be actionable. And so it was agendized for the purpose of being able to discuss that, and we were able to publicly make it known that we do not qualify for that.
Talking with C.J. Anderson, our Elko County School Superintendent. So moving forward, obviously you're having almost weekly meetings as you get ready to submit a budget. There are several deadlines. Those were talked about during the board meeting. And there are several unknowns. We know one of the factors behind this, it's a disastrous funding formula. That's decided by state lawmakers. That is not within our local purview. But the declining enrollment, CJ, and you're going to be looking at some numbers, including credit recovery, Northern Nevada Virtual Academy. I guess the charter schools have to be making an impact on our local public schools, or do they count within our distributed
Oh no, yeah, those for every student that's not in, the easiest way to say it is if they're not in our Elko County School District schools, then we do not receive funding for them.
But charter schools are public schools.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so charter schools are, and they receive funding for those students.
But it's an entirely separate pot of money.
It's a different pot of money, yes.
Okay. We won't talk about charter schools. We're happy for them that they're doing well. We keep hearing how well charter schools are doing. But
Yeah. And if I can add one more thing on the topic too around funding, and lots of times we, so if people go to, they exercise their choice and they go to not a charter school, but some other option, whether that's homeschool or a private school or something online, something that I will hear from people a lot is, well, I'm still paying taxes for education, and that's accurate that you are paying taxes, but if your child is not enrolled in a public school, then we don't receive funding for that kid. So that means
your taxes go to Clark County,
the
maybe.
state has your tax money that is supposed to go towards education, but we only receive what we receive based off of enrollment. So there's a little bit of a sentiment of like, well, but I pay my taxes, and I agree, you do. But that does not mean that we see that tax money that's going elsewhere.
And it's important to note that Nevada as a whole, as a state, we are among the lowest funded per pupil in the entire country. What are we, 49 to 51, something like that at last check? So.
Yep, it's low.
It's low.
It's in the 40s.
All right. Talking with our school officials today, we want to make sure we get all the information in that we can. Cody, the Director of Human Resources, what kinds of things are you hearing that you maybe want to alleviate either from the community or from faculty, staff, teachers who, some of them, it feels really personal, right? You can't help but feel like this is personal if you're a teacher.
Yes, and I totally understand that.
Because you were a longtime teacher, administrator.
I got to be a teacher for 16 years, and it was good. And I got definitely one of those teachers that was accustomed to the same thing every day. It's important to remember that the school district works with the unions. We follow those negotiated agreements, especially when it comes time to transfers. My office constantly goes through enrollment numbers and does our projections with those principals for how many classrooms need to be open next year. And that's a number that changes weekly. I believe we talked about 18 elementary, in the last board meeting, we talked about 18 elementary positions that have already been, or classrooms that have already been determined that won't be needed next year, and that number changed yesterday. We've already made another determination based on enrollment or projected enrollments for next year, and so we've already made the projection that we probably won't need a certain class at a certain school, and that's countywide. I don't want people to think we're closing that many classrooms just in the city of Elko. That's a situation that's taking place in all our communities within the district, and it's constantly being evaluated and discussed with our principals.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of, as we said, deadlines coming up. So CJ, at the March 17th board meeting, again, coming right up next Tuesday, you're looking at an additional $4.4 million savings? Is that?
No, not an additional 4.4, but the...
Already decided on?
Yeah, so within that 4.4 was a proposal to move our current year's textbook adoption that happened, which got taken out of the general fund, but the ability to move that to the capital improvement fund as textbooks qualify as equipment per NRS. And so it's not something we like to do or would do normally. It's a one-time proposal to try to provide relief to the general fund given our circumstance. And so kind of back at the very beginning stages of these proposals, we indicated that we had already immediately identified around $4.4 million of savings that we could do without any of the other stuff we've been talking about today, and that textbook adoption is within that 4.4, and we've been throwing around the number of around $2 million is what we've kept saying, and at our last meeting Matt said, can we stop saying around and give me a number? So it's if you were to look at our agenda for the 17th, which posted this morning, we budgeted $2.2 million this year for textbook adoption purposes, and we had not expended the entirety of that $2.2 million. So what we're proposing to do is to take that $2.2 million and with the money that has already been spent, which is in the neighborhood of like 1.5 to 1.6, move that over to capital improvement, and then the remaining, quick math, $0.6-ish million that is from the budgeted 2.2. Well, we would just also not use that, right? So that provides, again, that's relief to the general fund. So we'd been saying 1.8 to 2. It's really going to be more like 2.2 million. So really that 4.4 is probably a little higher than that. It feels weird to throw these big numbers around all the time, but lots of times we are talking in kind of round number areas. But that's what that refers to. So that would not be, I don't want to double count things or exaggerate what we're doing. We anticipated this would be something that would probably be approved, and so in that initial 4.4, we said, we're gonna suggest this, because some of this stuff can't be realized, like all the stuff that Cody has been talking about, and staffing and changes with Flagview and Chromebook purchases for the future. A lot of those things that we've been talking about, there's no savings to this year's budget with those things, right? Because people's contracts are paid through the year. Subscriptions are paid for the year. Textbooks have already been bought for the year. Chromebooks have already been bought for the year. We can't go back in time and take those purchases away. So a lot of the stuff we're projecting is for the coming school year and years beyond, whereas this item here with the textbooks, that is something that is currently going to provide relief.
Right, and that's part of the issue too, is that sure, you can chop up the budget, you can find all these one-time savings, but you need to find ongoing savings, because there really is no relief. Lawmakers don't meet for another year and a half.
Exactly.
And we don't even know then if they'll have any money, so at that point.
Right, and that's why it's so important. Cody was doing a good job of saying it before, and I just want to reiterate that when it comes to school budgeting, and with a funding formula that is directly tied to how many students, like that's how we get our money, is it's wholly dependent on the students we receive. So it's the number of students times a dollar amount, and then the categorical funds that we get, like special education and at risk and gifted and talented and other things, those come based also off of those students and our expenditures for those students. And so the only way to really address the budget is to address the staffing levels that go along with those students. Something I've heard a lot, and I'm very sensitive to, and I understand the perspective, but something I've heard a lot is all of these cuts are going on the backs of teachers and on the backs of the educators in the schools. And that's correct, because the people, the individuals that are at the schools are there to serve the students that are at the schools. And so if you have fewer students at the schools, we can't keep the same number of adults at those schools. Those things need to together change. And there's always going to be a little bit of a delay, right? Because we start with a certain number of students, we end with a different number of students, so you're always adapting to that.
But never in such drastic numbers.
The numbers have changed significantly,
over
much
1,000.
more than you're used to doing
Exactly.
in any year-to-year format.
And the other important point to that, I mean, no matter how you feel about public education, it affects local economies. Those are fewer teachers and their families who are employed in the community, who are buying homes, buying gas, buying groceries, shopping, being part of our community. I mean, it is a detriment. It is definitely a loss to the entire community. Yeah. Something I did want to bring up that I heard also during Tuesday's board meeting is that there was a suggestion by one of the board members that one of the administrators, or at least an administrator at Flagview, said, well, they said they could find $500,000 worth of savings right now. So has the school district not gone to individual campuses and leadership on campuses to find money?
So I would say on an annual basis, we have individual conversations with administrators at every campus to discuss not only what staffing levels we see, but to discuss in general what's going on at that campus. How that conversation looks can vary from person to person, but without getting too far into that, because it's not, I don't think it's appropriate to call out any individual person, but the proposal was somewhat similar to what we had as well, and I think for us, of course we didn't just eeny, meeny, miny, mo and make a decision. So you
factored in what that administrator suggested. Most
of what was suggested was part of what we had also suggested. We were just able to find more and do and do it in a different way.
With the configuration.
Yep.
Again, I hate to feel like I'm rushing you. It's just so much has transpired and will continue to. There was another comment that I thought was really interesting, and it could be kind of exciting, CJ. Toward the end of the meeting, there was a parent, and she leads a group of, I think, about 200 homeschoolers. And usually there's sort of this rift, right? I don't understand it, but everybody wants the best for their kids. But she came to the podium and said, we want to help. They're homeschoolers. They want to help strengthen schools. They want to look at and you even suggested this, creating magnet schools or specialties within the school district. It seems like right now we're just flailing to keep our heads above water, but this is an idea for the future, perhaps?
Yes, if we're talking about a different school format, is that what you're referring to?
Well, do you think, what did you get from her?
Yes, from that specific public comment that you're referring to,
yes.
My takeaway from that was that she had some survey results that she was able to conduct independently to help contribute to the conversation of maybe what is it that people are looking for when they enroll in other programs or at homeschool. I will say from our standpoint, we semi-recently started trying to do that ourselves. It sounds like there was maybe some hiccups with the QR code or whatever. But one important thing to note is that according to, per NRS, we're not allowed to require that information from people. So that was always a voluntary thing. And our experience was people generally weren't volunteering.
So you were just asking, well, what do people want from their schools? Is that to summarize?
No, our questions were around what was it that was
why
the main
they
cause
left.
of why they left. Yeah,
Okay, thank
and
you,
not so much
CJ.
what are you wanting in your schools, but what was the impetus for your departure, kind of thing.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And again, these are great conversations to have in the future, but it takes money. It takes lots and lots and lots of money, even when you have the best, most creative ideas, and everybody wants the best for their kids. But again, Nevada is near the very bottom when it comes to states, when it comes to funding. We are among the least taxed citizens in the country, and people complain about taxes, but it is just the fact. We pay the least amount of taxes, practically. So a lot of hard conversations going into the future. Speaking of conversations, I just wanted to make sure that we included what you were hoping to. I'll go back to you, Cody, because you might be sitting there thinking, well, I wish we could have talked about this today. Anything that jumps out that you want to make sure people know from the Human Resources Director position?
I'll just back onto that part on the closing various classrooms based on enrollment. It's not, I just want to make sure that the current teachers, and based on my projections, we'll still have positions for those teachers. It might not be the same grade level in their school, and might be a different school, but they'll still have positions. So there's a lot of rumors out there that we're cutting teaching positions, but those aren't full-time employees, is the best way to put it. Those are our usual temporary employees whose jobs go up every year, whether it's a long-term sub or a critical need.
Okay, so again, sometimes it's just a matter of drilling down a bit more to get to the facts, talking to the people who have the information, rather than jumping on a keyboard and speculating and causing a lot of great harm in the community. There was a note, or I've seen something on social media about Flagview PTA disbanding, and this was posed to me as well. Why in the world would a PTA disband? There will still be a campus. It will be sixth graders citywide. It sounds as though Flagview would need their PTA now more than ever. This is an opportunity for a PTA or a PTO to really step up and continue to contribute. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, and I won't speak for the PTA. I will say that I think probably, because I believe I saw the same notification.
It's confusing.
Yeah, and I think what they're thinking is, well, it's going to be significantly reduced, right? Because if you have half the parents to draw, around half the population to draw from, well, then that means half the membership, half the funding, theoretically, and so there's probably a concern about the longevity of that program. But I mean, I'll say that having been the principal at Wells Elementary School, that was an elementary school of roughly 175-ish students, and a very successful and robust PTA. So regardless of what school your child attends, I think every school should have a PTA, and I think everyone should be involved in that PTA for the school that their children attend.
CJ Anderson and Cody Krenka, our guests today, school administrators for the Elko County School District. I'll give you the same question. CJ, we could probably go on for another half an hour, but we'll take this one chunk at a time. Anything we didn't get to today in particular you wanted to emphasize?
No, I don't think so, Lori. But I will always just take the opportunity to reiterate that none of these decisions are ones that any of us want to make. They are challenges that we have challenges before us that need to be overcome. We have hard decisions that people need to be willing to make, and I want people to know that every decision is very thoughtfully carried out and worked through before it is carried out. There are certain things on the proposals that we have not yet finished yet, and that's not because we're just taking them one at a time or taking our sweet time to do them. It's that some of these things are pretty complicated to figure out what impact this is going to have on people, and so we do lots of calculations, we run lots of scenarios, and we see how can we do this again with the least amount of impact while also trying not to disturb as many people as we can, and trying to preserve people's jobs for them. There's, again, none of this is taken lightly, and every single decision that was made, we feel those very personally. And I had a couple people ask me after the meeting, after our last board meeting, are you happy? And not like in a negative way. It wasn't like are you happy? But like, hey, your proposal went through, are you happy? And my answer was, of course I'm not happy. You think this was something I wanted to do? This isn't something I was excited about. So no, I'm not happy that we've had 1,000 students leave our schools. I'm not happy that we had to inconvenience a bunch of teachers and have them change classrooms and learn new school families. Like, none of this is a joyful occasion for me or for any of us, but we are tasked with trying to make the best decisions to stabilize our budget so that our students have excellent teachers in their classrooms, which they will. I heard so much from our Flagview teachers about how great a job they're doing, and I know that to be true because my own child goes to Flagview right now, and he has incredible teachers, and I've had 2 other children go through that school, and they had great teachers at those schools. And what I know is those teachers are going to continue to be great teachers. They're not great teachers because they're at Flagview. They're great teachers because they're great teachers, and they'll continue to be great teachers, and they'll be a blessing and a support to everyone at the schools that they go to, and I'm confident in that.
CJ Anderson is our Elko County Schools Superintendent, and Cody Krenka, our Human Resources Director, has been alongside for today's Elko Live program. We'll keep talking about this. We'll schedule additional programs. Again, the school board meeting was 4 hours Tuesday. That one was a marathon. There'll be other meetings, so it's a lot to try to fit into this half an hour. And I'm going to close out the show, and I want to make this note, and a lot of thought goes into this. Because earlier this week, it was brought to our attention that there was a demeaning meme that was being circulated on a group chat. Now, the group chat was apparently folks who were associated with this upheaval that's going on at the Flagview Intermediate School. We don't know who is in the group chat, but I can tell you the creator of the meme went to particular effort to obtain the photograph of an administrator who was performing in a local musical. The photographer purchased a ticket for $25, went into the theater, took a seat, and waited for the opportunity to take the photo during a live production that included students, young people, and professionals from our community. This person happened to sit directly in front of me, so I noticed when they took the photo and they abruptly left the venue. Taking a photograph of anyone in a public place with a purpose of harassing or demeaning that person is hateful. Approaching a public place with the intent to stalk or harass someone makes other performers and the audience feel vulnerable. Whether or not an individual or a group of individuals agrees or disagrees with a policy or process does not give the right to stalk, harass, or target an individual. This is neither healthy nor appropriate conduct for anyone, but especially not for anyone who has influence over children in our community. What made me decide to close with this today is that the best thing that we can do about this kind of behavior is confront it and shut it down so students and the community know it is not acceptable. So if you are part of that group chat, this is public now, and we want you to know that we know that this is the kind of behavior that you adopted. Thank you again, listeners, for joining us for today's Elko Live program.